Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the stream. I hope everybody's well. Uh, it's been quite a week, one way or another. Obviously, there's all the news that's been going on around the world and within Britain itself. We shan't go into too much detail. Obviously, it's been a little bit of chat about that stuff anyway, but yeah, a little bit chaotic, including in just life for me in general. Work has been brutal this last week, so I'm knackered. However, did have one little bit of a highlight in that I finally got to do because we occasionally did this thing on occasions, but we had our little Lampy Man night at work, and let's see if I can show you that. Oh, no, wrong one. There we go. So there we go. So this was my evening yesterday. I was kind of I set up everything in the workplace. So we had a cinema-sized screen. So we started off playing some PlayStation games on a whopping great big screen, and then watched Suspiria. So it was kind of fun. It is like so we just got some food and we had some drinks and we just sat in front of that all night, and it was I'm exhausted to say the least. It went on till about 11 o'clock at night. It wasn't a hugely late night, but I did have a walk home at the end of it. It was pretty good. It's kind of cool hooking up the PS3 to the projector system. I had to do it anyway because I had to do something because I had to check that all of that stuff worked. So it was a good kind of test for it. So thanks to my friends Ryan and Andy for turning up for that. That was a lot of fun. So that was my evening last night, which is why I wasn't doing a stream last night. Obviously, it's a bit difficult. It'd be possible. That would make for a hell of a stream background, wouldn't it? Being in a full size theatre, watching on a massive screen, while kind of doing the stream. That would be quite interesting. Maybe one day I'll look into how to do that. It's a little tricky because obviously with open mics and stuff like that, with how to figure out a way of getting sound to us and all that kind of stuff. But it's perfectly possible. New Suspiria is not bad at all. No, New Suspiria is very good. It's funny actually because Andy had not seen the original Suspiria before, so we watched that. He seemed. I'm always a little nervous about showing films like that to people because I'm not quite sure how they're going to take it. It's not for everyone. Obviously, it's not a very mainstream kind of film. It's a little bit out there. So I kind of, I kind of like wondered if he'd enjoy it or not, but he seemed to. He seemed to be quite interested. So at some point we'll watch the remake as well. That's perhaps on one of those evenings. Might be quite good. But yeah, it's been interesting. So of course I booted up OBS earlier on, and it's immediately going, oh, it's a software update, and I'm like, oh shit, here we go. And it's changed a few things. The layout's all the same, but the colours are all different, and I wasn't even sure if the chat box would work because it's always a little bit of a worry. Especially there was a little bit of a spat between OBS and Streamlabs OBS over a bunch of stuff, and all that stuff there is done through a plugin from Streamlabs OBS. So you're never quite sure if it's going to work, or if they're going to kind of make life very difficult. Could have streamed your session. Yeah, it would have been interesting, but it's a lot of work to do because we wouldn't be able to just use webcams. It's setting up. It'd be like setting up the Blackmagic box and a couple of cameras and then microphone feeds, and it's a much bigger process, but it's doable. I can absolutely do it. It's just it's a lot of work to do, so it makes life a little bit more difficult. I mean, I've got radio mics and all sorts of stuff at work, so all that kind of stuff is, I've got the kit to do it. It's just it takes a few hours to set it all up at the end of the day. Dear. Talk about showing someone a movie for the first time. I showed Lexi Profondo Rosso and Bird with Crystal Plumage last weekend. She thought the doll from Profondo Rosso was really cute. Yeah, so it's kind of a creepy thing, but yeah, it sounds like she enjoyed it. That's really cool. But yeah. Is there anything Tilda Swinton isn't good in? I don't know. She's usually pretty damn solid. She's a hell of an actress, to say the least. So this evening we will be watching Parasite. So the link is, I believe I put it in the description. If it's not there, then someone let me know and I will put it into the chat. It's a film I have a little bit of history with, because for the longest time I didn't know what the fuck memories I had of it. I had this memory of a very specific section of it, and I couldn't figure out what movie it was for a number of years, until I eventually did kind of stumble across it. She did enjoy both. That's good. That's good. Had an interesting week back at uni, but doing administrative law instead of film. Wouldn't call it exciting, if I'm honest. It doesn't sound terribly exciting, but if you apply yourself, I'm sure you'll make a good run of it when you come out the other end of this. So good luck with that. I mean, a lot of this stuff is as interesting as you make it, really. Some of that stuff can be very dry, but it's a case of finding that little in into what's interesting about it. It's the same with anything, whether it's science, any of the sciences. Yeah, chemistry can be very, very boring to people until they start realizing the possibilities of things, and kind of, yeah. I would love to learn a lot more sort of sciences and stuff like that, particularly chemistry. That would be fascinating. I'm subscribed to a few channels and stuff that actually do that sort of stuff. I did try to kind of watch a lot of maths channels, but that stuff, my brain is just not wired for it. Parasite, is this the documentary about Johnson? Oh, God. A little bit of politics. I'll tell you, no, this is the 1982 version film. Parasite was heavily promoted in Fangoria on its initial release. See, now the thing is, I haven't watched this in a while because I haven't watched it since I reviewed it for the Section 3 series. So I can't quite remember how good it is, and I had a brief look at some of the reviews of it, and a lot of them were it's not very positive about it. But then again, a lot of the reviews of these kind of things are often not very complimentary. It's a Charles Band film, not a Charles Brand film, because I'm a dick. I will never forget that, and I will never let myself forgive myself for that too much. Thanks to the people who actually kind of corrected me on that, because a little typo slipped into my script, and then I was just calling him Charles Brand throughout the entire frigging review. And I thought maybe I could just put a little disclaimer on it, and then as I kind of watched through the review, I was just a bit like, kind of, oh god, no, it's too often, it's annoying. And I've only ever kind of annotated one video, because I did it about 4 or 5 times throughout the writing. I can't remember which one it was, but then eventually I just kind of went, okay, I'll just put an annotation in there and just slap myself across the face with a little with a little message on screen, rather than record about 15 minutes worth of audio. It was Section 3, yeah, a lot of stuff with Section 3. Section 3 is always the more interesting one out of the two. Everybody gravitates towards the video nasties, which there's a very specific, interesting kind of stuff on there. But as a list of films, Section 3 has a lot more very interesting stuff in it, and a lot of stuff that I'm surprised wasn't on the prosecuted list, or attempted to be prosecuted list. Have you seen the faulty film Bitters? I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but No, I haven't. Gutted annotations don't exist anymore, technically. Yes, I am as well, because I think they were incredibly useful, especially if you're doing a factual video. Or if you just want to kind of, things update. You upload your video and things can change. So it's nice to be able to go back and put annotations in. And I don't know why YouTube got rid of them. I think it was a very detrimental thing. Section 3 films were just a list, right? They weren't banned. What Section 3, the list was basically a primer for the police. So they could walk into a shop and go, it's got X, Y, and Z films on it. We can seize those relatively safely. It was just a guide, really, for them to go, right, these are the suspect ones, right? So they weren't banned as such, although the BBFC wouldn't give them certificates, necessarily. Particularly in the forms that they were coming in. What levels of cuts and all that kind of stuff they had. But the police would just use that as a way of kind of getting a rough idea. But the thing is, they weren't deemed legally safe for prosecution. So if they were prosecuted, there was a good chance they would get off for one reason or another. So the Section 3 list was kind of the grey list, if you like, of the video nasties. Speaking of nasties, I did recently watch Cannibal Terror. Oh, yeah, it's a bad film. It's a pretty bad film. It's kind of fun for how bad it is. But you've got to be one of those suckers that likes a bad film to sit and watch that movie. Absolutely. It's right in that Euro cine slot of terribleness, to say the least. That really is. I mean, it's like Eurocine had a kind of scale of films. There was a period where they were all pretty bad, but some had more production value than others, and that's the period that most people know them for, when Jess Franco was working for them and stuff like that. Cannibal Terror really is in that kind of slot that is just... It's like they had two films on the go and this was the spare footage. It's generally the kind of way to look at those films. They are kind of in that sort of tier. Oh dear. Cannibal Terror is a stain on French cinema. About par with our current comedies. What a disgrace to the industry, man. A shame. Every cinema making nation has good and bad. I mean, I've mentioned it before, and it's not to deride French cinema, but I've never really felt that French cinema is quite as deserving of the almost uncritical kind of praise that it gets. It has some masterpieces. It has a lot of masterpieces. There's no two ways about it. But I don't think it's got particularly a better track record than many countries. But there you go. Anyone got Franco Faceless 4K? No, I haven't yet. No. I've been kind of getting bits and pieces for my photography habit lately. I am saving up for an 800mm prime lens, super telephoto. So that will likely be my next purchase. It's either that, or I get a refracting telescope, and I'm sort of tossing up which one to go for. I'm about 150 quid off of it, saving wise, of getting the thing. So we will see. Dear oh dear, still not as bad as the Angels, you know. Yeah, I still haven't managed to sit through that entire film. I really ought to at some point. I really ought to kind of try and make the effort. I'm sure I've got it on a hard drive somewhere. As I remember, last time I looked for that film, The Ancients' Melancholy, it was extremely expensive and quite difficult to get hold of. If you mean lift a scaffold, yeah. Has anyone else been watching Rings of Power? I have, and it's pretty damn good. I have very little interest in the Lord of the Rings. I have to say. I struggle with a lot of fantasy stuff. I did enjoy Game of Thrones up until a point. And I think I got up to series 5 or something like that, and then I just lost interest. I stopped watching, and I never felt much drive to go back. But these things happen. But I'm glad you're enjoying it. There's a lot of mixed reviews, shall we say, or mixed opinions on it. Some people saying nothing's happening in the first few episodes, and I've always been of the school of thought that I don't mind having a build up to something actually happening, as long as what's happening in the episode is setting a good footing for what's coming up. Because that's the advantage of having a series. You can build these things up as long as you do it right. You don't have to have massive kind of like bouts of action in every episode. I think that's such a poor way to look at the form of a TV series. But yeah, Minty does not like. I hardly watch TV, if I'm honest. I barely watch TV at all. It's usually, if I watch anything, it's when I'm with my brother. I don't tend to go onto Prime to watch series very much, although I think when the next series of The Boys comes out, I will, if it's not out already, I will watch that, because I really fucking enjoyed that so far. That was a lot of fun. The other series that I really enjoyed was Breaking Bad, and of course Twin Peaks. But they're so few and far between what actually catches my attention, and I'm always a little reluctant, because you go into those things and you sort of go, my God, it's just going to take forever to get anywhere with this thing. And The Boys, just kind of the opening of that, that first season was like kind of, it grabs your attention. And I've always felt, since I've seen that The Boys is actually kind of what Zack Snyder should have been doing, in terms of kind of like how the story's built, and I think that's what he was aiming for, but I think he missed badly. I think The Boys is a much better version of that kind of the dark superhero type thing. Breaking Bad rules. Yes, it does. It's a very, very good series, incredibly well written. I've got to make the effort at some time to watch Better Call Saul. I watched, I think, the first season, and I didn't get back to it. I have a terrible habit of doing that. It's just like I've got to get the motivation to get back into something. So I think that would be kind of cool. Love Black Mirror. I've seen a few episodes of Black Mirror, and it was very good. I like the fact that it's kind of self-contained episodes, if you know what I mean. There's a kind of common theme throughout the series to some extent, or it's sort of a thematic thing, but I do like series where they do that kind of sort of anthology series, I guess you can call it. Yeah. So I'm going to say, everybody, get yourselves ready for Parasite. We will start at past. It is about an hour and a half long, just under an hour and a half long. We'll get started at around about past. Oh yes, Gary, if you're watching, I suspect you are. Just yeah, he's watching. Twin thing. Just to let you know, I've booked the birthday week off. I will be up. So yeah. And I'll be bringing my camera, and I might even bring my, depending on what the weather's going to be looking at, I might even bring my tracking mount. I will figure out a way of getting it all strapped to my bike. We can go out and play with cameras. Which should be fun. I'm really enjoying all the photography thing. It's friggin' expensive, but I mean, once you've got the kit, it's not too bad. You can do a lot with what I've got. I've got a few bits to get. The next really expensive thing after the lens, well, actually, I need to get one more, a decent quality, to say decent quality, a higher quality prime lens, so I can do some astrophotography with a better lens, and a tracking mount that is a bit more chunky. But yeah, it's always one thing or another. Checked Parasite earlier. There's an ad at the beginning. Hope that's just it. I got my ad blocker on, and it didn't seem to give me too much hassle. Although I have to say, Opera's ad blocker has become a little bit less reliable these days. A channel that's on movies on used to have the French cut of 99 Women. Yeah, that French version is not the version to watch in my opinion. It's the longest version, but it's longer for the wrong reasons. Not that I've got a problem with anything kind of that nature. Absolutely don't. I think it's perfectly legitimate, but not in the way that Bruno Mattei did. Because that was awful. That was deeply, deeply awful. For me, I'm picky when it comes to TV. Lexi watches a lot of stuff, some of which are passable. Oh dear. Yeah, yeah. I am very picky when it comes to the TV stuff. I have to say, my brother does kind of push me to watch some stuff when I go up there. Some of which I enjoy a bit more than others, but he's got pretty good taste in that stuff. So if he enjoys it, there's a good chance I'm going to enjoy it as well. It's like The Boys. I probably wouldn't have gotten around to watching it. Although I was always intrigued by it, but I probably wouldn't have gotten around to watching it if it wasn't for him. So thank you, Gary. Old Speckled Hen tonight. It's nice stuff, but it's quite malty, actually. It can be a little heavy in the summer sometimes, but it's a bit cooler now, so it's not so bad. This stuff on tap is like fucking truth serum. You just start talking, and the filter goes. It's a bad idea. Oh dear, oh dear. Okay. Just heard Lampy will be getting strapped. Really? Okay. Oh dear. Thinking of watching a Quiet Place in the Country. It's a late 60s movie from... God, my eyes are bleary today. Elio Petri. I don't know that name, but... let us know how to get on with it. Yeah, I've never heard of that. You do have a little bit more accessibility, or at least more access to the market of French films, I guess, Kieran. Being you live in that country, so you probably get exposed to a lot more stuff that from there that most people don't get to hear about, or maybe it is very, very popular and I just don't know about it. It's always possible. I am not a god, despite what people may say. Oh dear. Okie dokie. Well, actually, what we got? 23. Okay. Just gonna have a quick look up the comments, see if I missed anything. Rings of total bollocks. Okay. It's Italian. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I'm not as all-knowing as some people may say. God, this screen's a little bit small today. Can I pull that down there? No. New layout with OBS is just a little bit kind of fudgy. I shall have to have a play later on, but I shan't do it now, just because. I just push a button and the entire stream just decides to end. Yeah, it's Demi Moore's in this, right? Yes, I believe it was one of her earlier roles. So yeah, I don't know if she was ever kind of ashamed of it. I think she sort of embraced it. It's one of those funny things, isn't it? It's like when you get Matt McConaughey and what's her face in the Texas Chainsaw. Their agents were like kind of like trying to block releases and stuff like that of the film, and it's like kind of ridiculous. It's, oh, this never happened in my career. It's like, just kind of, you know, chalk it up as a bad job if you have to. You know, there's no need to be embarrassed by these things. You're kind of like jobbing actors at the time. It seems to be a thing, you know, when they make it really big, then they suddenly get embarrassed about all that kind of earlier stuff. Uh, is Quiet Place in the Country the Franco Nero film? No. Oh, no timestamp yet, Kerry. We haven't quite started. We're going to start in about 5 minutes. I'm just trying to find shit to waffle about at this point. But since I promised half past, we will do half past. It's getting warm in here already. Okay, well, maybe it's just me. I'm getting a hot flush. I'm sure it's going to be very different over the winter. I am eyeing up a kind of bodysuit sleeping bag so I don't have to turn the heating up so much. Holly Hunter was in the burning in Blink and Miss It part. Yes, she was. Yeah. I don't know if she was ever embarrassed about it. I never heard anything about that. But it is shocking how many, especially with the exploitation scene, because a lot of these actors got their break in these exploitation films. It was their way into the industry. It was a way of getting something on the portfolio, so they could go to. Oh shit, that's getting a bit leaky. So they could make their portfolios, and they could go out and get bigger jobs, better jobs, all that kind of stuff. And then they sort of turn around and, you know, like it was a shameful act to be involved in that stuff. Oh, it's so debasing. But then you get the other actors that kind of like really embrace it, you know. And when you kind of look at someone like Mark Hamill, who's kind of like, you know, his breakout role was a pretty fucking big film, who went on to do a lot of smaller stuff, and he tends to be kind of like, you know, very grateful to fans of those films and not try to shy away from it. Though I would love to hear his opinion on the Jess Franco film that he was in. That would be fascinating, because that was one of the weirdest casting choices I've ever known. Demi Moore confirmed that she was the I Spit on Your Grave poster lady. Yes, and I believe she was only about 17 at the time or something like that, so it's a bit... she was quite young at the time. I always found it an odd thing that they just didn't get Camille Keaton to do it. Where I live in France, it gets incredibly cold and snowy during the winter, kind of unbearable. Yes, on the continent it does get particularly cold. Britain has quick snaps of extreme cold, but it's rarely, I say extreme, not by some people's standards. No, there's times when it kind of like goes -4, -5, and that's about generally the worst it'll get. Usually it'll the cold period will be like kind of 0, -1 at worst, and then you just get these spikes which are a bit worse than that, but most of the time it's just cold and damp more than anything. Sure, Stallone did porn before Death Race and never felt ashamed. No, and Stallone's an interesting one because he had to really fight his way through. I mean, when he did Rocky, they wanted somebody else to do the film. They just wanted his screenplay, but he insisted on, you know, directing and starring. Did direct it, didn't he? But yeah, he wanted to be in it, and it was a good thing. So he took a lot less money for that, but ultimately the payoff was worth it. I like Stallone, and I think he's always kind of remained a bit aware of the struggle that he went through. I don't think he's ever forgotten that kind of stuff. But so many actors have done a bit of porn back in the day, and the directors, we've talked about them before. Abel Ferrara, you got Wes Craven did one, although he always kind of denied that he did that, but yeah, it looks very Wes Craven, put it that way. Yes, that's correct, Kieran. I was struggling to remember, but he wanted to be in it, I know that much. kind of held back on a lot of money to do that. Okay, folks, it is time to start the movie. So start giving me a thumbs up when you're ready, and we will get cracking with Parasite. Been a while since I've watched this, so kind of looking forward to it. I bet it's shit now. It was kind of funny watching all the reviews and stuff like that, but yeah. Okay. Realistic began with porn, if I recall. Doesn't surprise me. A lot of the exploitation guys did. Abel Ferreira particularly had art house sensibilities, like even when he was doing that kind of stuff. There was all that kind of gubbins going on. Well, we've got a thumbs up, so I think we are going to get started, folks. So stand by your beds and all that kind of crap. Starting from 0000. We don't have to kind of zip forward or anything. And we'll go on a count of 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Play. Let me see pictures. I am hoping I'm actually getting... Yeah, sorry. I was worried about sound then for a minute. Now, what you got to realise, it should be obvious from that title card that Parasite 3 was actually a 3D film initially. In my opinion, 3D didn't really get much better. Jean Roland's day job was making adult movies, so it was with a load of them. Bruno Mattei, Jess Franco, Joe D'Amato. Now, Rottweiler Dogs of Hell was another film that was actually shot in 3D, and you can tell on a couple of occasions there's a bit of that going on, and I think this film has a certain amount of that as well. I do wonder if the 3D versions of these films are actually available at all. You know, have they been preserved? Meanwhile, in Suspiria Lab. Actually, it's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because the saturation on a lot of these films is very low when you compare it to something like Suspiria, which has similar kind of lighting. These never look as good. And it's actually partly down to Dario Argento's filming method when it came to Suspiria. Oh, it must be science. There's an oscilloscope. And I'm not... I could be wrong, but that looks like an autoclave of some kind. Which is probably not be very good for the parasites. That's a pretty neat effect. Used to have a scope like that. Ah, okay. It's a fancy microwave. It is, kind of fun working out what half the scientific equipment is in these films, because you sort of look at them and you go, right, okay, well, this is completely not what you would use that for. Turn the science knob. Tied down guy was the bad guy in Robert Ginty film The Alchemist. Oh, really? Okay. I have to say, it's got some trippy stuff going on in this film, hasn't it? The problem with Dario Argento and Sergio Leone is that they had industry parents. Is that a problem? I mean, there's a certain amount of nepotism in film industry. Of course, as there is in. Oh, that's neat. As there is in a lot of creative industries and all sorts of industries, in fact. Um, and a lot of people get a hard time just because their dad was famous or something like that. And it's like, well, try to judge them on the results of their own work as much as possible. Yeah, they got some breaks, perhaps, and they grew up around that stuff. And that's the thing. A lot of these, people grew up around this creative process, so it kind of, I imagine, it gets under your skin. Every time I see this, I'm a bit disappointed when the alien doesn't put on a tiny top hat and dance away with a cane singing like in Spaceballs. God, it's been such a long time since I watched Spaceballs. There was another film. It's another one of those films that I'd half remembered from years and years and years ago, and then I'd forgotten what it was. But I could remember the song "I Want to Eat Your Face." It's "I want to eat your face, it'd be so yummy, then it's at my tummy," kind of thing. And I was trying to remember what the fuck the film was called, and I think it's Spaceship, and it's not as good as I remembered. But I found it amusing at the time, apparently. Dario Argento did Suspiria. I not hear a bad word about him, I think. Yeah. uh, he was, at the very least, a very good director. His later stuff was very weak in comparison, I think. Although John has a lot of time for... John Rennie, that is. Has a lot of time for Mother of Tears. He's stood up for that film, and I don't see what he sees in it. I mean, one of the things that Dario Argento always had was a strong sense of style, and from his sort of later 80s kind of entries onwards, a lot of that seemed to go out the window. It's a shame, but it's not to say that he's a terrible director. It's just maybe he's just past his prime, his creative prime. I know I felt the same about George Romero's later works and that kind of stuff as well. When it comes to Argento, I choose to remember the good times. Yeah, and that's the thing. You should never diminish his great works just because the later ones aren't so good. It happens. One of the things that people don't often realise is that kind of creative genius sometimes has a bit of a time frame. It's a window where it works. And sometimes you pass that and you just can't get it back again. Well, didn't waste much time with this kind of action, did they? Romero passed his time after Dawn of the Dead. Pass it up, yeah. Well, not after Dawn. I mean, Day. There was a couple of other films which do stand up, but Land of the Dead wasn't a great film for me. He delivered out an enormous Neil Breen style, didn't he? Old Man Argento is disappointed compared to Old Man Cronenberg or Lynch. A lot of people said that Cronenberg kind of lost it and stuff like that, but I disagree quite strongly. I think his work has shifted, but I think it is still as powerful and thoughtful as it's always been. It's just not body horror in the same way. Just nothing to see, just cramming this woman into an oven. Yes, Carpenter read his window. It was a good one, but later work was not in the same league. Sometimes it's a case of looking for certain aspects of the work, and I think that's certainly the case with David Cronenberg, because people were disappointed that he wasn't doing the body horror stuff. But like I've said before, his work has shifted much more to the kind of psychological kind of end of things. It's sort of like a psychological horror, exploring these characters' minds. When it comes to Carpenter, I'll defend Ghosts of Mars after a fashion. I think I found it mildly entertaining. I would hardly call it a classic, though. Is the new Cronenberg film any good? Crimes of the Future, I have still got to see it. I think I might pick it up on. I think it's on Blu-ray now, so I might pick it up on Blu-ray at the end of the month. The goddamn sickies. I have to be honest, I love John Carpenter and most of his work, but Escape from LA really, really didn't need to be made. I think it was a very compromised movie. I can't, I haven't really read much about it, but it does feel like there were certain things that Carpenter wouldn't normally do in a film like that. So I don't know how much of it was him and how much of it was kind of studio interference or stuff like that. I still find it an entertaining movie. It just doesn't have that real kind of gritty edge that Escape from New York had. And, a lot of that's budget. When they start going, right, okay, you've got to have you get a bigger budget, you get better cameras, you get kind of like allegedly better special effects teams and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of the restraint goes out the window. When you get a film like this, for instance, when it does the gore, it tends to do it pretty good. But they have to be quite inventive about how they actually sort of make half of this stuff and figure out the ways of getting around all the problems. And George Romero was fantastic at that. So when Land of the Dead, although it wasn't the biggest budget thing, came along, he had a lot more money than he would normally have had. And of course, he had CGI to back on, to fall back on. So the scope of everything and all the things he could do was much wider than it was with like Day of the Dead. And I've always found that George Romero's best work tends to be done in the face of poverty, essentially. He struggles, I think, when he's got a free reign. The famous thing with Day of the Dead was it was supposed to be a much bigger film. There was a whole kind of like above ground and below ground sort of thing going on and all that kind of stuff. And he could have made that movie, but they would have compromised the basically the gore and stuff within the movie. They needed to make it a lower rating, or rather than an NC-17, it'd have to be an R rating or whatever it was. And he went, no, that's just not going to work. So he cut it down to fit the smaller budget. Saw Carpenter's They Live recently. First time I'd seen it. Was the script written around the end scene joke? It's a very direct film in many respects. They Live. It's essentially a very small story that's panned out to a feature-length film. Sometimes it kind of feels like that, but Carpenter, for the most part, did a fantastic job in realising that. Oh, there you go. pokey bit. And the blood drips into your lap. "3D, ladies and gentlemen, that's what it's all about." That's always been the thing with the 3D movement, in my opinion. Is that ends up being what it's about. It's about throwing shit at the audience. It's the funfair mentality in film making. And that's why it's not interesting. If you could get to go on a roller coaster every day, it'd be a very boring kind of thing. You'd rapidly get tired of it. Boobs and snakes in the desert, what would Freud have said? I love Nada as a character, total badass and on a par with Snake Plissken. Absolutely. I mean, They Live is a fantastic film and a wonderful, wonderful piece of satire and commentary. It's very small and efficient. When I say it's obviously a short story, I don't mean that as a detriment. That's actually quite a good thing for a film. I think with the material that John Carpenter had with that film, he did a fantastic job with it. Oh God, yes, it was, John. Friday the 13th was very guilty of throwing stuff at the audience. Most 3D films from kind of this period and before particularly were. The modern stuff tried to make a bit of an effort of giving a more textural kind of feel to the image, but at the end of the day it always descends into that stabbing stuff at the screen kind of thing. I do wonder how much the 3D movement are we've been through, and I say been through because I'm pretty decided on it's long dead now. Even if occasional films do come out, I do wonder if the cinemas, or at least the film industry, found it worthwhile. And it'll be interesting to see how long it'll be before they start kind of really pushing it again. It's funny, the proponents of it, really, there was a few directors who really kind of were pushing all of that stuff, and um, it'll be interesting to see what their opinions of it is now. Now that the whole kind of thing is really sort of a bit of a it's a bit past it now, isn't it? Oh, thank you, Kerry. Avatar 2. Do you think Avatar 2 and the 4 or 5 other sequels after it are actually going to come out? I'm curious. I really am. I can't really see much interest in sequels to Avatar. It was a big deal at the time, and it did really well. Um, but I think it's been a very long time since the last one. So the any momentum it had is gone, and I think critically speaking, Avatar hasn't done as well through time. So yeah, and I think that's the biggest problem they've got is people have started watching this thing, and now because it's had enough time for critical re-evaluation to happen. I remember a show writing for the Evening Standard proclaiming 3D is the future because Avatar was promoting. Yeah. yeah, the media hype for it was huge, but you know the audience really initially interested in it, rapidly became kind of uninterested, and it was a couple of things really. I think it was firstly the extra price, the price hike of it was a problem to say the least, because it's significantly more expensive to go see a 3D film than it was a regular film. The other thing was people just kind of got used to it, and it was a bit like, yeah, it's not that big a deal. It's not that exciting an idea to go to a 3D film. So then they kind of went, well, I could save £5 by going and watch the standard version. Now, Dread 3D, which is one of the films I was about to watch, may possibly going to watch last night, but we didn't get round to it. I could only watch it in 3D. They did the 2D presentations in very limited cinemas, so we never got to. When I was in Ipswich when it was out, they there was no versions of it around. Avatar 2? No thanks, no. Not interested. Some odd sex toys on that lady's house. Seeing the trailer for Avatar 2, reaction was meh. After 13 years, I would need it to be so amazing. I consider myself lucky to have survived witnessing it. I mean, to be honest, it was a very derivative kind of film in so many respects. James Cameron should be capable of making much better films and interesting films than that. But I think he's got a little bit say a little bit. He's got very self-important about stuff these days. Over the last 10-15 years, particularly. Timbo says, I'm a lifelong 2000 AD reader. Read it when I was a kid. Occasionally, we couldn't really afford comics that often. But yeah. Sounds weird, doesn't it? So we had very, very little pocket money as kids. The 3D of Dread reeked of desperation. Actually, I think it's one of the times where the 3D was actually done pretty well, but I'm still not that interested in it. I don't think the film needed it. Shame is it actually suits the script, but I can't help but think if it was forced on them. Quite possibly. But you got to remember, it was at the height of the sort of 3D sort of excitement. So they probably went, it's the way to go. You see, I feel sorry for most of the cinemas that had to kind of splash out on the special camera projectors and all that kind of stuff, and the extra expense of kind of putting that shit together. Especially when most of the big releases at the time were kind of only releasing in 3D. It just seemed like a way of Hollywood screwing over smaller cinemas. Has this film been put out by any Blu-ray company? I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it's had a couple of reasonable releases, I think. Simon would be the one to kind of answer that question, really. Hey, look, it's Kit, yes. That was a seriously science fiction car back in the day. You know where the budget went with that, though, don't you? Apparently Inception did so well because it wasn't 3D. So you got to stay out in the cinema longer. It stayed out in the cinema longer because there was just so much buzz about it. I saw it 8 times at the cinema, but I was doing an analysis and I needed to see it several times. Plus, I enjoyed it, but I enjoyed it every time. I think it's a It's a wonderful film. What's this Casio piece of shit? Thought a good 3D movie was when Titanic was released in 2012. It's like, why? They did so much of that. Didn't they do a Star Wars 3D edition at some point? It's like, come on. Knight Rider budget went on. That's what I said. Spray, yes, it did. I loved that as a kid. It's another one of those TV series that I can't watch, along with like the A-Team, Street Hawk, and the likes. Still never seen Inception. It's a worthwhile film to watch, but nobody's forcing you. I think it's Christopher Nolan's best film. But it's a film he thought about for a very, very long time. So it's not like it was kind of forced out in no time whatsoever. He spent a lot of time working on that, many years working on that, from what I understand. Well, I hope you had a good evening. Or have a good evening. Enjoy yourself. I had a good night out in the piss last night. In my private cinema. I always wonder, what people think because of the noises that are coming from the theatre as they're walking by. Something like Suspiria's playing. I think next time though I've got to bring out all the subs and all that kind of stuff and get the sound quality a bit better. But I had a little adventure trying to hook up a PS3 to the projector and get the sound and avoid any kind of delays between the two. But it worked perfectly. Emmanuel 3D. Airwolf. Airwolf is one I would potentially go back to. Because there's some actually interesting writing in that series, as far as I remember. Got quite dark and quite political on occasions. It's a bit of a, as far as I remember, a little stealthy with its with certain qualities. No problem, Adam. Yeah, no problem whatsoever. Yep, definitely is Demi Moore. Ted Danson. What's the bet that they are messing with the wrong guy? Definitely one of the things that kind of happens in these movies, isn't it? Jan Michael Vincent was a beautiful man. He was a very charismatic screen presence, and it's a shame the way he kind of deteriorated, because he could have been quite something as a big actor. I mean, right up there with that kind of Clint Eastwoods of the world. But he had his demons, didn't he? Biker at the back is the guy from Wayne's World, Garth. Really? Okay. Now the trailer that I kind of, well, the sequence that I remembered was actually from the trailer with this movie, and it involved that woman. And I had seen this sometime. Um, I can't remember when it would have been. It would have been like late 80s. I think I saw this, and it just that sequence was stuck in my brain, and I'll point it out when I see it. And they literally just lift a scene for the trailer, at least one version of it, as far as I remember. It's a funny thing with these kind of memories. You sort of you fill in all these kind of like gaps, and all the kind of infirmities of the human mind become kind of laid out when you start realizing what actually happened. It's almost that Mandela effect kind of thing. No. Oh, definitely blow his nuts off. Oh. I'm so cool, I got better things to do than stand around having a gun held on me. If I didn't know better, I'd swear that was William Defoe. It looks like Ted Danson to me, just a slightly rougher version. Yep, take your coffee. It's a rather ostentatious thermos flask he's got there. Oh, God. They're still hanging around being dicks. They operate in a very small area, these guys, don't they? Too many girls in that gang. What's in the box? Yes. Horror movie characters never seem to meet nice bikers. It's one of those tropes, isn't it? You know, if you're a biker, you're a bad guy. As a biker myself, I would have to disagree. See, the reality of it is, if you're stuck on a road in a broken down car, it's more likely a biker will actually pull over and try and help you than it is another car driver. And as a biker, if you see another biker in any kind of trouble, you tend to pull over and help. I've done that on a few occasions myself. Saw a guy on a smaller bike, pulled over at the side of the road, so I kind of like went over because he was in a bit of a dangerous position. So I parked my bike behind him and put the hazards on and got him out of the way in, and reattached his chain because it had jumped. Chopper Chicks in Zombie Town, classic. Some highbrow entertainment there. See, these guys don't strike me as being badasses. They just strike me as just being kind of annoying. A bike will help right up to the point where you need a tow. You can tow on a bike, but you're not going to be towing a massively heavy vehicle. You just can't be towed as a biker. Toe Cutter was a decent character. Certainly an interesting character. They had a badass biker gang in Mad Max. You know what? I haven't watched Mad Max in a long time, and I did pick it up on Blu-ray a few months ago. So I'm going to have to sit down and watch it again. Has to be said that there is with the biker gang and all that kind of stuff, it's a little low energy when it comes to the filmmaking part of it. Clearly handed it to the smartest of the biker gang. And the bike gang in Mad Foxes were also great. Oh. Love Mad Max and ooh, ooh, ooh. Oh, 3D. Promise so much and disappoint even more. Love Mad Max and Road Warrior. Beyond Thunderdome was alright, and Fury Road was decent. I enjoyed Fury Road. Beautifully shot film. They were expecting a little nipper, but got a little clipper. Do you think they'll ever learn the lesson, though, from it? Rattlesnake tea. Sounds a little local. Right back. I really need to get a beer fridge right down here. Apologies for the grunting. My my back's still a bit bad. I had a bad back from last week, and it wasn't. It's not entirely gone away yet, and I've been sat on my arse all day, which just does not help. I never really got on with the Tina Turner song. Don't get me wrong. I think Tina Turner is an amazing singer, but it never seemed to fit for that movie for me. I see, Mad Max is one of those things that everything really does need to be kind of a little bit grungy. And I don't think sort of power pop type stuff really kind of fits it as a vibe. John says, I loved Fury Road. Yeah, I think it's a pretty damn well made film. I enjoyed it. It's the Men in Black. I do love the fact that that car was probably about 75% of the budget of this movie. It's a little hammy, yeah. You gotta love those bad guys when they're, all very, very polite and calm, and then spikes of just fury, and they take your people's hands off and shit. Is that Sledgehammer? You know what? I don't think it is, but we'll have a look and see who the actor is. James Davidson. So no, but I can see why you get it. It's the hair, isn't it? It's that bulletproof kind of hairspray sort of bouffon. You know what? I'd love to watch a couple of episodes of the old Sledgehammer series. That was a long time ago, but I always remember having a great time with that. No, it's not William Rash. So this guy's James Davidson. what has he been up to anyway? He's still been working. He did a TV series last year. Been very busy. Good for him. That damn Rickus. Yeah, it was a good TV series back in the day. Like I say, I mean, I always struggle with going back to stuff like that, whether it's the A Team or whether it's, any of those kind of things. Knight Rider. I remember having very fond memories of those TV series as a kid. But the idea of going back to them kind of fills me with a little bit of dread, because I know I'm just going to look at it and go, my God, that wasn't as good as I remember. And I really don't want to destroy that memory. Stay in that car. Just squeeze it. That car just looks like an absolute dog of a job to get in and out of. Maybe I'm getting... Oh, I am getting old. But they don't look comfortable. All right, Kerry. Thank you for that. Oh, he's ready for the giallo. Got the black leather gloves on and all. Kilogram. Fanny magnets. It's not quite sure you're saying it, but yeah. Oh yeah, fanny magnets. Glenn, comfort is an afterthought. I don't know. I mean, the funny thing is, from what I understand, a lot of those cars, the kind of high-end sports cars are not particularly great cars when it comes to. I know I'm missing the point, but it comes to reliability and all that kind of stuff. They constantly have to be taken apart and put back together again. Quick, put some salt on it. More monkeypox. reliability and miles to the gallon. Why people buy Ferraris? Yeah, I know. It's missing the point. Um, but when I say they're not made very well, I mean there are important things which go on with those vehicles which aren't very good. It's not a reverse snobbery on my behalf. At least I hope it's not. But yeah, Squiff enters the room before the rest of it. Yes, Demi Moore looks a bit out of place in this film. Yeah, a little bit. She looks a bit more kind of. I don't want to say average, but a bit more human than. And that's a horrible way to put it. I don't mean she looks like an alien in later things, but let's put it this way: they dolled her up an awful lot more in later films. Boss MG always used to break down, and someone would have to pick him up. Feel everything on the road in an MG. Yeah, there's been some bad cars along the way. Yeah. My brother used to have a really cool kind of Ford Escort years ago. Um, Unfortunately, they have a horrible tendency to rot. But it was a damn good car. Look how it's a ray gun. It's just a weird choice, isn't it, having this sort of car in a film like this. I mean, they probably looked at it and went, "Oh, we've got to have that," kind of thing. But it feels so out of place in this sort of semi post apocalyptic kind of setting. Toyota MR2 original was the same, too low down. It's nice thing about being on a motorbike is you're really quite high up. Um, Helps you see a lot more of the shit that's ahead of you. That's for sure. Let's play science with Miss Moore. Yes. I do have a temptation to watch Disclosure again. An interesting little film, that one. Very little, it was quite big at the time. But one of those films that was very, very mismarketed. Very misleadingly marketed. Because I seem to remember they really sort of pushed the fake accusation end of it, and that's not what the film's actually about. It's only part of it. Get the logic probe out. Look horrified. It's odd seeing stars before they were famous trash films. There's a lot of them around, isn't there? Like Jennifer Aniston started off in kind of really low budget films, as did so many actors and actresses. Seeing Matt McConaughey, for instance, like I mentioned earlier in the Texas Chainsaw Next Generation, um, it looked like he was having a whale of a time doing that role. I suspect a lot of the kind of like, give the re-release on Blu-ray or DVD hard time kind of thing was more his agents than it was anything else. Blue Iris, dear oh dear. It's a really, really low budget art expo. They might be roughy tufty kind of ruffian types, but they do have their sensitive side. Oh noes. Their camp looks like a Berlin art show. They've definitely got something going on. There's a little contemporary art going on, isn't there? Oh no, it's moved on. He's really going for that intense acting. Real slow, real slow. Nah, the lesser seen three door. Does the 3D mean three dancing? Yes. But this is mean, gritty, down to earth dancing. Get to the choppers, yeah. I was about to make that joke myself, actually. Oh no, his Red Bull's worn off. It's quite nice this week because having ditched Talk and gone back to Virgin, um, I've constantly got like excellent connection written on the YouTube thing instead of like what the fuck do you think you're trying? YouTube can be sassy. Throw black filter coffee on it and lemons. Never forget the lemons. Travel sickness is a bitch. So he's going to administer some Jägermeister and they'll get her right back on her feet. She turned into a zombie, yeah. Day-old sushi. It's probably what they made the monster out of. Lunchtime. Keep telling you, salt. Treat it like a slug. Either that or you just make it savoury. It's going nom 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 nom. Don't you give up. Yeah, a couple of aspirin, you'll be fine. You notice how this car's always travelling really, really, really slowly, generally speaking, when it's on these roads. Sucky clearance, that's why. Really crowbarring it in as much as they can. I wonder if Charles Band ended up with that vehicle. Sharp, John. Sharp. That car never looks out of place on that desert. No, it's not. It's not designed for those kind of roads, is it? Really? And let's be honest. You know, a modest pothole will stop that vehicle. Doesn't appear to be much government around that place, does there? It's looking a little anarchist. Oh, nice punch. Remember Dennis Pennis interviewed Demi Moore? He said, Miss Moore, if it was that over the top and it wasn't that outrageous, would you ever consider keeping your clothes on in a film? can't remember how she reacted to that. I don't think she was terribly happy, was she? What a misogynist. Dennis Pennis was good. He asked Madonna if she considered photographing her internal organs as she'd done the exterior. She, I think with Demi Moore, she's one of those actresses that I think she could do a lot, could have done a lot more than she did, if you know what I mean. No pun intended. Uh, she's a capable actor, for sure. She's never really been kind of like in too many roles where she really gets to kind of exercise that very much. I think back in the day it would have been interesting to have seen her do something with a little bit more challenging. But kind of got caught up in that, a lot of roles which just sort of relied on how she looked. And she sort of bought into that as well, which didn't help. Whose more was better, Demi or Dudley? How about Roger? Wolf. She does some pretty good makeup. It's a small thing, but she got the fat lip and a bit of a cut, and I'm assuming what they done probably shoved something up in her upper lip just to kind of make it protrude a bit. But that's actually quite a nice little touch of detail. It's not over the top. It's not that showy. It just looks like she's been actually hit. You see, that's one thing. Later in her career, you probably wouldn't have got away with doing anything to make her look a little bit kind of fucked up. I think rather than saying he's the best Bond, I would say he's one of the most distinctive, to say the least. I enjoyed Roger Moore as Bond. sort of depends what you're really after with your Bond, doesn't it? Really, you know, some it'd be the suave and sophisticated kind of Sean Connery, or the darker and edgier Timothy Dalton, or Daniel Craig. But Roger Moore's Bond films were fun. Dalton should have done a few more Bonds. Yeah, it would have been interesting to see. But I think he set an interesting precedent with the Bond films. And he still had the kind of cheesy humour and all that kind of stuff, but it was just that little edgier. Now, as I remember it, this sequence was pretty much the trailer. Bits of it were. It was kind of just cut together, and I remembered this strongly enough that it was firmly in my memory. The dripping and all that kind of stuff was going on. So I remember all that kind of stuff sort of happening, and like years later, I was trying desperately to think what the hell it was, and I even kind of like tried on IMDb because it was part of the forums and stuff back then. 3D. There's that bit, and then there's this sequence, and I'm pretty sure I saw it as a trailer. My dad, being my dad, loved all the Bond films, and it was the one thing we had in common movie-wise. Well, I mean, they're such a big part of movie history, aren't they? It was always the trope, wasn't it? That the Christmas Day movie was always a Bond film. Miss Daly don't live here no more. Miss Moore. Welcome to Hotel Hell. Dead and breakfast. Has there been a horror called Dead and Breakfast yet? Should be. British, obviously. It's that the sequence Blue Iris is. It's stuck in my memory for a very long time. It's kind of cool. I got the slug. Why is there glass grapes up on top of her landings? Why not? It's for that homely kind of vibe. It's either that or it's to stop people sliding down the banister. Thank you, Kerry. I think Glenn has won tonight's award for best pun. You had to win it sometime, didn't I? I mean, it's me rabbiting on for about a couple of hours each night that we do this. British horror movie called Dead and Breakfast as a cross between Fawlty Towers and Motel Hell would be amazeballs. Yes, it would, wouldn't it? 50 hertz, 60 hertz, 70 hertz. No man can live at this hertz. See, that's why you should wear long sleeves. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. See, it's always an open invitation, isn't it? It's like you should have killed me when they had the chance. It's like Thanos going, should have aimed for the head. Yeah. Just need a salt gun, don't you, really? A salt rifle, if you will. That was a pretty good stage kick. I'll give Demi her credit on that. She sold that as well. Come on, ask nicely. Get it off of me, please. I'm sorry for all the things that I did. For what is a fairly low rent film, they've there's a bit of artistry in the filmmaking. And that's a good explosion. You should have killed me when you had the chance. Oh, barbecue's on the menu tonight. You can't, kick the opportunity out for some nice roast meat in that kind of environment. Now it should just ended there and just gone like kind of, or are they? Question mark. There you go. Oh, well, that was kind of fun. No, I think it's a fairly slow film, but doesn't really kind of hang around too much. I mean, it's got its cheesy aspects as well. I mean, they found a posh car and had to crowbar it in at every opportunity. I can forgive it for that. I can forgive it for that. It is very 80s in that kind of respect, but yeah. I think it's overly harshly judged on a few levels. It's a pretty decent film. Anyway, I'm going to call it a day. I know it's a little bit quick, but yeah, we'll call it there. Hopefully, I'll be doing one next week. If not, I will let you know on Facebook and all that kind of stuff. But I hope you enjoyed the film. I think it was. I think it was worth watching. This playlist that's on here, God knows how long it's going to last. The chances are it will disappear at some point, but we'll see if we can find some more stuff on there to watch it on. Seems to be quite a reliable source for all that. Yeah, it's all right. It was definitely all right. Did its job. Didn't let itself down. A pretty competent one. So nice one, Mr. Band. I think definitely worth the entry fee on that one, shall we say. But let's call it an evening. So enjoy the rest of your weekend. I will see you again at some point soon. It will probably be next week as far as I understand. Chances are it'll probably be the Saturday, but I will let you guys know on the Facebooks at the earliest opportunity. If you've got any suggestions, Rambleaholics is the place to go. So, but I just want to say thank you for joining. It's always fun to have you guys along, and we've had quite a few in today. So, yeah, it's been lovely to do this. I'm going to open the door, get some fresh air in here. Maybe a couple more beers, and then I might even put a movie on. Something just for me. Take care, folks. Good night, and look after yourselves. See you soon. Like and subscribe.